Want to know why? Ask how. Howard the Humongous. Donald Trump may dominate the news, but keep your eye on something that's not being covered by CNN, Fox News, or PBS. Keep your eye on ISIS. Barack Obama, not Donald Trump, is beating ISIS back and threatening it with destruction. Yes, I said Barack Obama is threatening to squeeze the life out of ISIS, not Donald Trump. On June 26, 2016, ISIS lost Fallujah. On August 13, 2016, ISIS lost the city of Manbij. The Syrian Democratic Forces is an alliance of Kurdish and Arab troops put together and armed by guess who? The Obama administration. And Obama's Syrian Democratic Forces were responsible for these two victories, Fallujah and Manbij, the taking of two entire cities. Now the Syrian Democratic Forces, the Obama-backed Syrian Democratic Forces, are within 12 miles of Mosul and plan to take the city in the coming weeks, or at least to try. Bear with me. Mosul is the second biggest city in Iraq. It's also the last major ISIS stronghold in Iraq. You really got to bear with me tonight. I'm losing my place. Why is Mosul significant? Iraq is the nation where ISIS was born. And Mosul is the city where ISIS' greatest achievement, its caliphate, was announced in June of 2014, 2 years ago. Meanwhile, Manbij, a city ISIS has lost, is in Syria, home of ISIS capital, the capital of the ISIS caliphate, Raqqa. But there's something more important. Manbij is a choke point on the vital supply route that takes necessities from Turkey to ISIS capital, the Syrian city of Raqqa. With Manbij in its hands, the Syrian Democratic Forces are in a position to choke off Raqqa altogether. If Raqqa is lost, that would be the end of ISIS as a caliphate and the end of ISIS as a global state. It would leave ISIS alive in Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Somalia, and Nigeria, but as insurgents, as guerrillas, not as absolute masters of territory and governments. And even ISIS base in Libya, the Libyan city of Sirte, is besieged and on the brink of being lost. Being lost by whom? By ISIS. Being lost to whom? To the Obama-backed Syrian Democratic Forces. Meanwhile, security officials have warned that as ISIS control of land and cities diminishes, its terrorist attacks on the West will increase, and that is undoubtedly true. Not to mention ISIS attacks on civilians in Islamic nations like Turkey and Afghanistan, and in distant Asian areas as far as Thailand, Indonesia, and the Philippines. ISIS will remain a menace. On August 20th, 2016, today, ISIS claimed credit for the deaths of 22 people celebrating a wedding in the Turkish city of Gaziantep. And ISIS, bear with me while I struggle with paper here. And ISIS has claimed credit for scattered acts of terror, like the axe attack on 20 people on a train in Germany that injured 4 people, the throat cutting of an 85-year-old priest in Saint-Étienne du Rouvray, Normandy in France, not to mention the Nice, France truck attack that took a staggering 86 lives. Look, I am often critical of Barack Obama, especially when he draws a red line and then turns his back and reneges on his commitment. But in May of 2014, Obama made a speech at West Point that I thought was fucking brilliant. In it, he laid out a policy of training and arming the locals in the Middle East to take care of local Middle Eastern problems. I was so excited that I called a friend at the Department of Defense to crow about it. Obama rapidly proved me wrong. Dead wrong. His administration trained Syrian and Iraqi forces, armed them with our most advanced infantry weapons, and sent them into their first battle. What did these Obama-trained and armed forces do? They turned tails and fled. They left their expensive and sophisticated weapons and military vehicles behind. They gave tens of millions of dollars worth of high-tech weapons to ISIS. Barack Obama's plan was a failure. I had gotten enthusiastic over a failed plan, and I was not happy about it. But Barack Obama learned from his mistakes, something absolutely vital to success. And he kept his eye on the prize, wiping out ISIS. He did not give up. His newest proxy army, the Syrian Democratic Forces, has a secret weapon. That weapon is called the Kurds. The Kurds are the only group, the only people that has proven it can beat ISIS, and that it can beat ISIS over and over again. Give the Kurds arms and training, and they can pull off miracles. Arming Kurds takes courage. Why? Turkey's wannabe dictator, its president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, wants us to help him exterminate the Kurds. He has set the Kurds up to be his chosen enemy. Why? Because he is greedy for power. So he can galvanize Turkey around him and justify rounding up 60,000 of his dissenters and opponents and shutting down any press that doesn't do exactly and print exactly what he tells it to print. If Erdogan is out for a simple goal, he wants to be Turkey's dictator for life, and he wants to leave his stamp on Turkish history. He wants to be the greatest man of the next 200 years of Turkey's history. How? By taking Turkey from being a secular state to being an Islamist state, the last thing in the world this planet needs. So Erdogan gets furious when we work with the Kurds. And Erdogan's Turkey is a key figure in NATO. In fact, the Obama administration has been forced to persuade Turkey to allow us to use its airfields to attack ISIS strongholds, and that wasn't easy. So working around Erdogan to pull off victories against ISIS is a work of diplomatic genius. Keeping Turkey on board while backing Kurdish forces takes patience, persistence, and intelligence. Paper. Here it is, the paper. But the bottom line is that ISIS is in danger of long, slow, never give up extermination. Now look, that doesn't mean the end of Islamic terrorism. Even if we wipe out ISIS totally, Islamic terrorism comes from a 1,400-year-old war of Islam to conquer the entire world. Its pattern was laid out by Muhammad himself. That war will not end. But ISIS may be severely diminished or eradicated as a historical modern force, a force that threatens you and me. And this extermination of ISIS is not extermination at the hands of a self-styled, overweight, serial business failure who thinks he's a tough guy. It is not taking place at the hands of Donald Trump, whose real estate companies are $650 million in debt. In other words, Donald Trump plays the part of a rich man by burning other people's money. The extermination of ISIS is not taking place at the hands of a man who almost single-handedly sunk Atlantic City, but managed to extract large sums of money for himself despite his failures and his bungling. The extermination of ISIS is not taking place in the hands of a man who may not be a job creator, but a job destroyer. Watch the interview on MSNBC with a woman who had the misfortune to get out of college and get her first job at Trump magazine, and was given checks that bounced, and was served with a notice of being bounced. The company, Trump magazine, was being bounced from the building in which it had its offices for non-payment of a simple thing like rent. This extermination or possible extermination of ISIS is not taking place at the hands of a man with almost no impulse control whatsoever. ISIS is losing to a man who hates drama and seldom shows his emotions. He is the antithesis of a reality TV star. ISIS is losing to a man who hates drama and seldom shows his emotions. It is losing to a man who makes careful decisions, then follows through relentlessly. It is losing to a man who, like you and me, makes mistakes, and I get angry at him for them. But it is losing to a man with a presidential temperament, a man of patience and persistence, who takes in vast amounts of information before he makes his decisions. ISIS is not losing to Donald Trump. It is losing to Barack Obama, which surprises even me. This is Howard the Humongous, speaking to you from the future, that it is your job and my job to make. Or, want to know why? Ask how. And now for the off button. There it is.